Are you looking to make cooking from scratch just a little bit easier? One huge asset all homesteaders or growers need when cooking from scratch is a full pantry of all the basic supplies you need to make any recipe. Cooking from scratch can seem like a daunting task, but when you have all the supplies you need waiting in your kitchen, it can take a little bit of stress out of the situation. Today in this episode, I'm going to be expanding on what all Purposeful Kitchens need: a purposeful pantry stocked with all you need for cooking any meal from scratch. Let's get growing. Hello and welcome to the Purposeful Plant Podcast, the show that talks about growing a garden, a homestead, a healthy family, and most importantly, growing closer to God. I'm your host, Crystal Media, owner of the Red Ridge Farm Homestead, where our mission is to help women of faith find the courage to grow healthy food for their family while building a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior. If that's you, don't let the world hold you back. Pray, just plant. Welcome to the Pray Just Plant Podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Media, and today in Season 9, Episode 10, we're going to expand on the idea of a purposeful pantry. I have talked about stocking your pantry, your winter pantry before on a previous episode. I will share that episode in the show notes. But many of you ask, why do you need a pantry? Why do you need things stocked up? And one of the basic reasons is because it will help you cook from scratch. Now we're going to talk about more reasons and get into more depth on this topic. First of all, before we really dive into what a purposeful pantry is, let's talk about the second stage of the purposeful growing success journey, and that is the purposeful kitchen. What is a purposeful kitchen? Maybe you heard me mention it in the intro and that you asked yourself, what is the difference between a kitchen and a purposeful kitchen? Well, let's go back a little bit further and talk about the different stages of a growing journey. I have shared a few episodes ago that I have really sat down and tried to figure out how I can bring you guys more information and how I can truly help you in every step of a growing journey or creating a purposeful life. And that meant that I needed to break down the stages of that purposeful life. What do you need to do to create purpose? What do you need to do to break away from the norm? What do you need to do to learn to grow a garden, to learn to homestead? What are the things that need to be done? And can you do it right now? The purposeful growing journey or success journey walks you through those different stages. And the second stage after just grow, where you focus on yourself and figure out your goals and why you even want to be a homesteader and why you want to grow your own food, is the purposeful kitchen. And what I love about purposeful kitchen is it can be for everyone. You don't have to have land to have a purposeful kitchen. If you have a kitchen, you can create a purposeful kitchen. And I'm going to jump over really quick to a webpage that I designed that walks you through all of these stages and gives you some action steps. So I'm going to read directly from that page. So growing in this stage, the purposeful kitchen stage, where we know that the kitchen is the heart of the home. Growing in this stage simply starts with what you are already doing. Eating healthy food, cooking for your family, and purchasing the best food. Maybe if you're not growing the best food yet, or if you're growing the best food, this can help you. Maybe you already started a garden, maybe you already started a homestead. This stage is really going to help you learn how to cook from scratch, learn even more. So what do you find in this stage? You're in this stage when you want to give this growing journey a try and want to start growing right now. You don't eat or shop with the seasons yet. You want to learn how to create a meal plan for your family. You want to learn how to preserve produce or preserve the food that you're growing. And the action steps in this is step number 1, learning to cook from scratch. In each of these action steps, I have a little link that you can go to and learn more and expand your knowledge on each. And in fact, if you really want to dive in, you need to get on the Purposeful Growing waiting list. This is a membership area that I have developed that takes you through each of these stages. First one is Just Grow, Purposeful Kitchen, Purposeful Home, Purposeful Garden, Purposeful Homestead, and finally Purposeful Life, where you begin to expand on your ideas. But back to the Purposeful Kitchen. You're going to learn to cook from scratch. You're going to learn to figure out what a homestead kitchen needs, how it is separate from just a regular kitchen. Step 2, you're going to learn more about homesteading without a homestead. This is for you that don't have land, or you're just getting into this homesteading idea and you want to practice. No one told me that I could go to the grocery store and still buy organic or buy foods from my local farmer's market or buy foods from a farmer down the road and still create purpose and healthy food for my family. So I teach you how to, in those steps, you learn how to purchase and eat with the seasons. Then you also learn how to meal plan. Then you learn how to preserve your first food. You don't have to grow your food to start preserving food. You can preserve food from the grocery store. In fact, I still do this. Even though I grow a lot of my own food, I purchase a few of the foods that I can't grow here. Or my orchard isn't developed yet, so I don't have a bunch of apples yet. So I purchased that from the grocery store. I purchased that from my local farmer's market or a neighbor down the road. We trade, we barter, and I still preserve those foods even though I didn't grow them. And the last step before you move into a purposeful home is creating a purposeful pantry in your home. And there I have a blog post and podcast episode all about stocking up a winter pantry and how you can use the winter season to stock up your pantry and it has a list of all the basic things that you are going to need. So as you can see, even if you're on your growing journey or just starting out, it's very easy to start developing a purposeful kitchen, and a purposeful kitchen can be done at any time in your growing journey. You can purchase things from the grocery store, you can purchase things from the farmer's market, you can grow your own food and still utilize it in a purposeful kitchen. Because one of the biggest things that I have learned, and I learned this on my own growing journey and also with watching others, that we want to homestead. We want to break away from the norm. We want to grow our own food because we know that what we grow is more healthy. We know that maybe buying organic is more healthy or buying from a farmer's market is more healthy. And we focus on that aspect, finding and utilizing the food. But sometimes we forget about the cooking of the food, the preserving of the food, and all of the things that we need to do to learn in that step. I myself jumped right into a garden. I had very young children. I jumped right into a garden. And then sadly that year, a lot of my green beans, if you read my book, Planting Beyond the Harvest, you know this story, but a lot of my green beans went to waste because I didn't know how to preserve green beans. I grew them. Kind of the Lord handles a lot of that stuff in the garden. You plant a seed, He handles it. But what about bringing that harvest into our kitchens? How do we preserve it? How do we make sure that we're eating it? How do we make sure that it's getting put on our family's plates? And that's where the Purposeful Kitchen is so important. And I think a lot of us on our growing journey just jump past this or think it is not as important of a step to learn. So why do we need a purposeful pantry? So I mentioned in the intro and I mentioned a little bit before that a purposeful pantry is going to help us cook from scratch. And that is so true. Cooking from scratch is going to, if you're baking or making breads, or you're even just taking your green beans and making a casserole or all of these other things, you're going to need more things in your pantry than just the green beans. You're going to need supplies to help you bake that. So one of the basic things that you need when you're preserving green beans is salt and canning salt, and you got to make sure that you have that in your pantry. So a purposeful pantry is not only going to just include the basics like flour, sugar, baking soda, baking powder, the things that you need for any cooking from scratch recipe, but you're also going to need some things that are going to start you with preserving your food, like jars and a canner and all of those different things too. So when we expand into a purposeful pantry, it's important to think outside of the box. It's important to think that a purposeful pantry is just more than a pantry, because you can develop a pantry very easily just by purchasing those things that you need to cook from scratch, or those things that you need when you've made your meal plan in the Purposeful Kitchen stage that you need for your recipes that you're going to cook every week. A purposeful pantry goes into and expands in so many different ways. A purposeful pantry can be the basic supplies. A purposeful pantry can be all of the food that you preserved and want to use through the winter. A purposeful pantry is going to be all the things you need to complete recipes. A purposeful pantry is just going to be a place in your home that you can stock up. Because that is another aspect of homesteading, is it not? Purchasing food maybe when it's a little bit more on discount, or purchasing food when it's at peak is better. So I also have a long blog post series that talks about, and it includes the stocking up your winter pantry, but it talks about the different things that you could be gathering in peak of season. So spring is, of course, the time for strawberries, and fall is the time for apples, and summer is the time for zucchini and peppers. So you can be thinking about not only what's going to be coming out of your garden throughout the year, but what can be purchased at your grocery store or a farmer's market during those different seasons. Because one of the easiest ways to increase the nutrient value of our food is, yes, to choose whole foods. That is very important. And sometimes I go back and forth between organic, not organic, because that word has been fibbed just a little bit. If you do the research, I'm not going to go into it now. Even in all of those different levels, the most important thing is you want to eat the food that is closest to when it's been picked. In our current food supply, in our current situation, we can go to the grocery store. I can go right now in the middle of February and I can get strawberries. Now, those strawberries can still be organic. Those strawberries can probably still be fairly fresh, but those strawberries that I buy in February and January and maybe a little bit into March have been shipped from hundreds and thousands of miles away to get to my grocery store. Because currently in the United States, or currently around me, we're in the middle of winter. In fact, we had a huge winter storm just this morning and all the roads are closed. So if I go to the grocery store right now, there probably isn't going to be as much fresh fruits because everything has to be shipped in. So what that does, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, I guess you can get into the ecological side of it, but I'm not going to go there. I want to stay with the nutrient side. When something is picked and it has to travel a long ways to get to your grocery store, it is usually picked before it's fully ripe. And it's usually placed in storage containers that make it ripe by adding carbon dioxide. This does not add nutrient value to your food. So it's really nice in this current day to be able to walk to the grocery store or drive to the grocery store in my case when the roads are open and get strawberries. But those strawberries aren't going to be as nutrient dense as the strawberries that are showing up at my grocery store in June and July, because June and July is the peak time for strawberries. And maybe you've noticed too that the strawberries in May, June, and July are just better. They taste better, they're juicier, they look better, all of those things. That can be with every vegetable that you consume. There is a season for it in your area. And when you are purchasing those things out of season, that is when you are going to be dealing with less nutrients. Produce already loses nutrients when you cook it. It already loses nutrients when you preserve it. And as I'm talking with water bath canning, or pressure canning. But if it already starts with low nutrients, you're going to get even lower nutrient product. So you need to be thinking about eating and cooking with the seasons, and a purposeful pantry can help you with that. Because in the season when strawberries are in season, you'll know when they're in season too at a grocery store for sure. They usually go on deep discount. Well, why do they go on deep discount? Well, it's because they have a lot of them. That's as my son in going to school for business would say, that is supply and demand. There's a lot of supply, so they have to reduce the product to increase the demand, and so on and so forth. So that is a great time, especially if you're not growing your own strawberries. I've struggled for years to grow my own strawberries. That is when I need to be buying strawberries and freezing them or making my strawberry jam, because that is when those strawberries, and I could go into any other vegetable or fruit, is at its highest nutrient value. So to wrap up this very short little episode, this little chat that we are having, the reasons you need to develop a purposeful pantry in your home is because the kitchen is the center of the homestead. And if you're not out growing your own food yet, you can still develop a purposeful pantry for yourself. Because a purposeful pantry, when it's well stocked, is going to help you cook from scratch. It's going to help you eat with the seasons. It's going to help you eat that food when it's at its most nutrient dense stage, and it's going to help you have food security, and peace of mind, because you know that your pantry is stocked and it is ready to help you cook all of the new recipes that you want to try. It's ready to help you utilize all of that good, delicious food that you may have grown and help you create healthier meals for your family. So I want to thank you for joining me today in this short little episode. And I hope that you take a few minutes to jump over to that webpage. I will include it in the show notes below about the Purposeful Growing Success Journey that walks you through those 6 stages of growing and developing and creating that purposeful life for yourself. Each stage is very simple. Each stage, I give you action steps. And if you want to dive in even deeper, it's not open right now, so you have to get on the waiting list of the Purposeful Growing member area. This is an area where I take you through each of these stages and expand. Not only do I tell you what a purposeful pantry is, I help you develop a purposeful pantry and more. As always, don't let the world hold you back. Pray, just plant. This week's episode is brought to you by the Building Soil Health Handbook. This handbook was designed to help you take the guessing out of improving your soil, to help you become the expert your soil has been waiting for you to be. Many of us think that we're gardeners of vegetables and gardeners of fruits, but we're not. We are stewards of the soil. In this handbook, I walk you through the 4 steps I've used here at the farm to improve my soil. I want to help you become the expert that you never realized you could be. To grab your free copy, go to redridgefarm.org/resources.